Yamsketch.
Noses again. All right, so we took a look at the nose in profile. We took a look at drawing the nose with with a couple of different techniques. This is the necktie technique, the sphere or ball technique, and looking at the front and different angles. But what we didn't talk about was how to stylize the nose. So I want to take a quick look at that. So one of the things is when you're drawing the nose, it's a pretty difficult shape actually, and it's something that a lot of people have trouble with, I think. So it's easy to get like over focused on anatomy, but once you've got some basic anatomy under your belt and you have a basic idea of what to do when you're approaching the nose, and again, check out the other videos if you want to see that. There's a lot of good techniques. One of the easy ones is to draw a necktie, and then think about where the ball of the nose would be, and then you just use these things as measurements. So the 2 points here are your nostrils. This is where the nose gets narrower at the top, but it's 3D, so it has like a ridge, the bridge of the nose. And then this area is actually where your eyebrows connect. So that's where your eyebrows go. This is where, the bottom of the eyebrows. This is where your nose goes up to a ridge. So, this would fall in shadow if the light's coming from a certain direction. And then this is where your nostrils go. So we talked about that. This is one easy technique. We talked about some other techniques. Check out those videos if you want. What I want to talk about now, though, is now that you know the basic anatomy, how can you stylize this to draw like, a character for a comic or for a storyboard or for an animation? Something that, you still want it to look good. You don't want it to just suck. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to follow like perfect realism anatomy, right? So how do you sort of use this real anatomy and the real proportions as like a starting point for coming up with a way to kind of create a character for that? And actually, fortunately, it's not too hard. So let's take a look at it. So once we know the basic real anatomy, right? And we have somewhat of a good reference. So these are just a grab of some random noses. Well, then we can start to make caricatures. So one of the things that's important about the nose is it's a 3D shape. It's hooked into your mouth. It's hooked into the mouth. It's hooked into your eyes, and it's hooked into your brows. So it's kind of attached to everything. But you usually don't see all of it. Like usually, you only see like the part that catches in the shadow and catches in the light, or you only see, part of it in the side and whatever, right? So what's important is like you don't need to draw every single hair on the nose for people to get it. You just have to draw like just enough, right? It's like I can draw a very small amount and still have you realize that what I'm drawing is the nose. And that's really important. What we want to do is find a way to tell people that we're drawing a nose with as few lines as possible. I mean, how many lines is this? 4? So we don't need to add all this anatomy, but you still want to study it and draw it and understand it, because when you draw a caricature of it, it helps to know that anatomy in your head, right? Because you can see it in your head. So if I look at these noses, right, instead of drawing them okay, I'm going to outline it. Okay, and then there's, it's like this, and then, and it's hideous, right? That's hideous. Don't do that. So instead of trying to like draw all these things, even if you were going to trace it, turn this thing down, and if you were going to trace it, pick out the main details. So maybe the nostril where this stuff tucks in here, the other nostril, and then maybe the top of the nose, maybe, and then there, you're done. Maybe like that. That's enough, right? You don't have to do more than that. Or maybe for this guy, like, why don't we just go here? Don't even worry about the nostril too much. Here, done. That's it. That's enough. You don't have to hit like this stuff. You don't have to do this stuff, right? So just keep in mind, when you're looking at stuff, even when you're tracing it, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. And the bad way to do it is to think that because it's there, you have to draw it, right? That's a bad way to approach drawing. The good way is to see what's important and edit the rest out. That's what an editor does. That's what a musician does. That's what, someone who draws and an artist does. Like you don't actually draw every blade of grass. You edit it out because you're trying to create something that has, a meaning behind it or a purpose behind it, or just you want it to look cool, but you don't actually go out and draw 50 million blades of grass. Like that doesn't make sense. So So just kind of like distill it down into like its essence and just look at it, take a couple of lines that make sense. So even though I'm tracing these, you can see that I'm gonna just straight up do this the wrong way and trace this one like with every line in mind, go around everything, and then, oh, there's the bridge of the nose. Here's the thing. Here's this, right? I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to turn this off and compare this one to these other ones, right? These ones look nice, and you could build off of that. And even without that image there, I can easily see where I can add in shadow and shade and where I could build form into these noses, right? Whereas with this one up top, I'm just like lost before I even started, okay? So don't do that. Just grab like the basic things and then you can go from there, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with tracing. It's a great way to practice. Just make sure it's not the only thing you're doing. You know, move between that and drawing these forms from your head and stuff, and you'll get a lot better at doing sort of like creative drawing. So you can kind of see like with just a few basic lines, I know where I can start to place form now, and that's pretty cool. That's helpful, right? Okay, so anyway, when I am stylizing the nose, obviously I'm thinking like, is it anime? Is it like American comic style? Is it like this? Is it that? That's going to affect it a little bit. But the important things is, where's the light? So let's say our light's here again. And then, you know, what am I going to draw in the shadow? So of course, the nostrils tend to catch a lot of shadow, but they won't catch it equally. So it's not like I'm going to be like that nostril, and then a big thing there, and a big thing there, and then that. That's not necessarily going to happen, because if the light's coming like from here, that means that this one's brighter and this one's darker. So it might mean that this one I just indicate really lightly, and this one I actually draw more detail into. And that's a way to show that this is actually in the light more, and then this one is in the shadow more. So it's catching a lot more, you know, it's like caught in relief. So I don't need to put much detail here. And then in this one, maybe I do put a little bit more, because I put all these, you know, shadows that are being cast on it, and that it's casting onto the mouth and the cheek and stuff down below, right? And then I can think, okay, well, maybe I want, you know, a little shadow here to kind of show where this brow starts. And then maybe, you know, I need some shadow here because I have, you know, an eye. Okay, and then I have my eye in here. Okay, good. And then yada yada, right? Then go from there. And then maybe I need something for the cheek. Boom, boom, done. But I didn't have to do much with this nose. And then, of course, I can draw the other parts of the brow and the other eyes and blah, 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 blah. I can draw stuff. But the point is that, like, when you're picking out how to characterize something, just really try to distill it down. So very simple here. Maybe I can draw a little bit of shadow here going down into the lips. But just keep it real simple and think about the light. You don't have to draw this line just because you know that there's a nose here. Everyone else knows there's a nose there too, so you don't have to draw it. Just think about like the light. Maybe it's so bright here that you don't have to draw anything in this area, and you just draw the shadows on this side, and that feels way better. And by the way, I'm drawing this with a pencil, but if this was ink, like a comic or something, just draw it darker and, you know, make your choices on shadows a little bit more carefully, and you get the same effect. So this doesn't matter if it's pencil, paint, ink, whatever. You just think about like light and shadow and stuff like that, and that's going to help you out. And the reason you can do that is because when we were taking a look at this nose, we were thinking about form. Remember, we were looking at spheres instead of circles, thinking about a sphere even though you're drawing a circle, so that when you come around on the nose, you know where to put the shadows, you know why it's dark in certain areas and bright in certain areas, like, right? Or even on our other technique, the necktie technique, we have, this one's a little bit sharper, right? So it's like a necktie, but we're still thinking like, here's a ball, here's the bridge, and we're throwing that stuff into shadow. So we're still thinking about this as a 3D thing, right? It's still a 3D thing. So we're never like drawing it flat, which means that when you characterize it or make a caricature of it, just pick out the part that makes sense for you. So just go bam, bam, bam. Now it's done. You don't need to draw all the rest of that, right? But sometimes you have a character where you really want to simplify things. So let me show you a few of my favorite characterizations. One, we started by drawing everything with a sphere. So why not just draw one oval, one sphere? You already know how to shade it. You shade it like this, right? If that's where the light is. And boom, that's it. Now I just open the top and I have a nose. That's actually a great one for like cartoons and stuff. You can still do like a shadow under the nose where the mouth is. You know, here's the mouth. Here's a happy mouth. And there we can draw like a cartoon character, right? Happy one. All right. So there. I like to do that. So this area here, I wouldn't draw that probably. This is in shadow too. So even though this is a kind of a really cartoony character, I can still think about this with form. It's just I've simplified the form down to its super essence, which is like just a straight up sphere. So there. That's one way to characterize that, and I like that. Another way that I like to approach it is with this triangle here. So this was kind of like the tie method, right? So we have the tie method. Well, instead of like creating the extra form, let's just use the actual shape of the tie. So boom, that shape becomes my character shape. And you can kind of see this almost looks like a, I mean, it kind of looks done already, right? You just have eyebrows here. You have your character's eyes here, right? And this could be an animal, could be a human. But if you just erase some of this stuff, it's enough. We have enough details here for a character, right? So there, maybe that's my character. And then they have a little smile here. Yeah. This kind of looks like a doped up hippie guy. I don't know. So there's a character, right? So I like to just think about where I can simplify stuff. And it's not just the nose, it's everywhere, but you know, that's a cool way to do it. There, boom, 3 lines or 2 lines in a triangle, and I'm done. I have my character, and I've simplified the nose. But the reason that these simplifications work isn't just because I'm like, I'm going to draw a triangle. It's because the triangle is kind of based on like what I know about anatomy. It's just like, it's a simplification of it. So I tend to think that those are a lot better than when you just sort of like put something there. But, you know, each to their own. Like, you can just make a weird shape and say that's a nose and make your character out of that. There's no rules. But I tend to think like if you know a little bit about structure and anatomy and at least just like 3D stuff, then when you make your characters, they're going to feel grounded to the real world, even though, you know, they can be as cartoony and as, you know, different and as creative as you like. They're still going to feel kind of grounded because there's still like depth to them. And I think that there's something to say for that. That's just my own opinion, though. You don't have to agree with it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And those are just a couple of ways that I like to approach it. You know, you got to choose the place where you are going to simplify and the place where you're going to, you know, put details in. And that's really just up to you. So, you know, you can really do whatever you want with this in terms of stylistically, but I do think it helps to know the structure and kind of know a little bit about form and shadows and stuff like that. So anyway, hope that was helpful for you guys. If it wasn't, oh well. If it was, cool. All right, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Yamsketch.